Good day. The Primrose International Viola Archive is pleased to participate in this year's Viola Congress. We wish to thank Australia for hosting, for giving our archive this opportunity to let violists and viola enthusiasts of the world learn more about our archive. Representing the archive at the Congress in Australia is Myrna Layton. Let's take a closer look at the archive with her. The Primrose International Viola Archive is located in the United States, in the state of Utah, marked on this map with a big red X. The archive is located in the community of Provo, about an hour's drive south of Salt Lake City. The archive is a part of the library at Brigham Young University. Here we see the campus lying at the base of the Wasatch Mountains. Zooming in for a close-up, we can see the Harold B. Lee Library, which is the building in which the archive is housed.
The late and great violist William Primrose was my teacher and friend. I would like to say a few things about Mr. Primrose and the extensive Primrose Archive here at Brigham Young University. Primrose spent his last 3 years here at BYU. Before this, we had worked together on his memoirs, which BYU Press then published as Walk on the North Side. An outgrowth of this collaboration is still another book, Playing the Viola, Conversations with William Primrose, which is being published by Oxford University Press in the near future. Primrose gave his personal library and memorabilia to Brigham Young University, and this laid the foundation for the Primrose International Viola Archive, which is housed in the BYU Library. To honor and perpetuate the name of the greatest virtuoso of the viola, it is our wish to expand the Primrose Archive. We want to establish it as the most important international center for materials relating to violas and to the viola and its literature. The Primrose International Viola Archive has 4 divisions. Contained in the open stacks are published examples of viola music bound in red and white. Each bears a distinctive book plate. These scores presently number about 4,000 items, making this the largest collection of viola music in the world. Another division houses manuscripts of viola music, some scores which were dedicated to Primrose. Others are Primrose's own transcriptions and editions. Then there are the memorabilia, which review the Primrose career, including a press clipping volume, reviews, articles, flyers, posters, citations, and personal letters. There is also an extensive photo collection which traces Primrose's life from very near the beginning to his death in 1982 at the age of 77. Finally, there is the record collection. The Primrose International Viola Archive has on hand an example of every recording that Primrose made as a soloist and chamber musician. We also wish to have many of his recordings reissued, perhaps making available some of these early discs that have never been released. We would further like to make available the last recording that Primrose made at age 75 of the Bach cello suites. This is a large undertaking and an expensive one.
This is David Dalton, Professor Emeritus of Viola at BYU, speaking to you again. But now, however, more aged than the last clips you saw of me. Perhaps it's the increased wrinkles that persuaded the producer to keep me off camera this time. You see the entrance to the Harold B. Lee Library and the approximate location of the Primrose International Viola Archive. What you don't see before you is the recent extensive underground expansion of the library that allowed us to fulfill a vision we had years ago of someday having a separate and dedicated space for PIVA. Come inside, will you please? These students are going downstairs in the new atrium, while we will be going upstairs to the 4th floor. PIVA is a part of the music library and represents its largest collection of instrumental music devoted to one instrument, the viola. Janet Bradford is the BYU music librarian and can answer any inquiries you may have about the archive. As we approach the rooms of PIVA, some very familiar faces to violists come into view, especially this one. We are now outside the Primrose Room, one of the two rooms that house the great majority of holdings within the Primrose International Viola Archive. Here is an etched image of a 16th century Gaspar de Salo viola. Please note the border composed of a stylized viola clef. We'll see this image again inside, by the way. Professor Claudine Bigelow, who replaced me as head of viola studies at BYU, and who always has a helping hand. And I smile. This is the Primrose Room, dedicated to the memory of the great violist whose donation to BYU, as mentioned previously, got this all started. The room and its contents are a memorial to Primrose. But as PIVA further develops with the gifts or acquisitions of private collections from other prominent violists, we hope this will become a kind of violist pantheon, celebrating their lives and careers and the viola itself. The butternut wood of the coffered ceiling, the wainscoting, and the cabinets all were constructed by the firm Artisan de Bois of San Diego, California, whose motto is Old World Craftsmanship. This style was exactly what I had envisioned from the start, reflecting Primrose's and the viola's heritage. Here the stylized viola clef again, and some symbolic subtleties, as you see in a flower. Of course, a primrose, and garlands of primroses, images that are retained even on the escutcheons. To the left and the right are two ex-primrose violas. One by the Japanese maker Ueda, and the other by the Swiss Pierre Vidoudet. In the center is a 5-string viola alta, built for Wagner's principal violist in the Bayreuth Orchestra, Hermann Ritter. These instruments were fully gifted to PIVA by generous donors. This is bronze statuary of Primrose's hands, the molds of which were taken 2 months before his death. It's satisfying to know that various modern recording companies have taken interest in remastering on CDs Primrose's vintage recordings. Among the most intrinsically valuable memorabilia we have from Primrose himself are his letters, approximately 5,000 of them, for he was a faithful correspondent. They are still to be fully explored. When one thinks of Primrose, one often thinks of Bartók and the Viola Concerto, Primrose's most famous commission and the composer's last work. Every instrumentalist has a pedagogical genealogy, whether one is aware of it or not. Often, as does Primrose's, it reaches back along a noble line of shoulder string players to the noted Middle Baroque violinist Corelli. And every one of us is part of a genus, a family. Primrose's documented ancestry reaching back to the 15th century. We honor in this room violists and friends of the viola who over the past few decades have made it possible to have their collections deposited in PIVA for the benefit of interested others. Collections of scores, pertinent memorabilia, photos, letters that have come from New York, Kentucky, California, Utah, Michigan, Switzerland, Salzburg, Perlau, Bratislava, and Berlin, just to name several. My personal and heartfelt thanks to those who supported the construction of the new rooms along with BYU itself, from students who gave a few dollars to others who gave many thousands. No, our task isn't yet completed. We wish to establish on firm financial footing, through a $75,000 endowment, the annual Primrose Memorial Concert and Masterclass, started the year of his death and carried out by some of the notable artists of our profession. Then there is the $500,000 Primrose Endowment, needed for the research, publication, performance, and promotion of the viola. There's still much to do, and opportunity awaits us. Let's go through this archway into the adjoining and larger PIVA room. These photographs of International Viola Congresses are by Dwight Pounds and record the images of events and distinguished violists past and present. Some of the most notable in our profession are portrayed in this contribution to PIVA as 5 giants of the viola by the painter Ben Carl Riley, son of the viola historian Maurice W. Riley. What a gift this is by the virtuoso violist Emmanuel Vardi, who enjoyed a double career as a painter. Homage to a great violist was hung on this spot with its oil paint still drying the night before the celebratory opening of the Primrose and Piva rooms on March 1st, 2002. Here are the open stacks of viola scores that have grown to about 6,000. On meet David Day, curator of special music collections, poring over one of these uniformly bound scores, with contributors appropriately cited on the book plates. The Piva room is equipped with state-of-the-art computers for researching the large holdings of scores, bound and in manuscript, assessing sound recordings and other materials, and browsing the Piva website. Please be our guest at the Primrose International Viola Archive either through a personal visit or a visit to our website. We want to welcome you on site. And here are the people who can inform and host you. Piva, after all, is meant for you and others like you. It's been a pleasure.
Returning for a close-up look at the interior of the archive, we find ourselves first in the Primrose Room, where we see wall-to-wall wood beautifully handcrafted by Nick Bruford and his company, the Artisans du Bois of San Diego, California. The idea was to create an atmosphere reminiscent of an old Scottish club. The focal point of this room is a glass case containing 2 instruments that Primrose owned, including a Ueda that he used while making his last recordings of the Bach suites in the Biddulph label, and a 1951 Pierre Vidoudet, an instrument Primrose liked to use while soloing in Europe to honor its craftsman, who was a personal friend of his. The other viola in the case, the one in the middle, did not belong to Primrose. It was a gift of Franz Zehringer and is a 5-string viola alta built in 1904 by Philip Keller and commissioned by Hermann Ritter of the Richard Wagner's Beirut Orchestra. The intention of the construction was to simplify some of the extremely difficult parts that Wagner wrote for the viola by adding an E string. Just behind the violas, we can see a bronze replica of the hands of William Primrose. The forms of these were taken 2 months before his death on May 1st, 1982. They show how broad his hands and fingers were, and how his pinky was genetically predisposed to play the viola. It was almost as long as his ring finger. Finally, the glass case holds a medal signifying the award Commander of the British Empire from Queen Elizabeth II, something Primrose was particularly fond of. Let's look very closely at the wooden cabinets that line the walls of the Primrose Room. Violas, primroses, and C clefs have been lovingly featured into the details of the wood. Even the escutcheons that decorate the keyholes have tiny brass primroses on them. If we were to open the cabinets, we would find a documentary evidence of the life and work of William Primrose. For example, there are manuscripts of music he performed, among them his solo concerto parts, such as his working score for the Bartók Concerto. Also available for study are transcriptions. Primrose's black ink manuscript is small and clean, filled with colored pencil markings in blue or red. Some of the transcriptions were published, such as the Schubert's Litany for All Souls' Day, which came out in 1951, while others remained unpublished. William Primrose was an incredible letter writer, and much of his correspondence is in the archive. Here's one example. A letter from William Primrose to Mrs. Boris Kutzen, wife of a distinguished violinist, teacher, composer, and a founding member of the Chautauqua Orchestra. This brief letter shows so clearly the graciousness of William Primrose. August 16, 1938. Dear Mrs. Kutzen, I was astonished to learn from Boris yesterday that you had expected me to lunch. I most humbly and abjectly beg your pardon for my lapse. Apparently, Mrs. Primrose and I are at cross purposes for once. She imagined that I would attend anyhow, and I imagined as she was unable. I too was included when she had to decline, most regretfully, your so kind invitation. And here I was, sitting alone in the Lotus Club, twiddling my thumbs, when I could have been with you and Boris, and hearing the children play. A most upsetting reflection. There are letters to William Primrose from his friends, family, and colleagues, such as this example from Lionel Tertis, written in 1972 when Tertis was 96 years old. Tertis begins by reminding Primrose that, I am not very well, having just completed the exhausting task at my age of an autobiography. My doctor, finding me at my desk with papers strewn, etc., has warned me to do nothing more and ordered a complete rest for 2 or 3 months. In this letter, Tertis gives a brief anecdote in which Primrose's request he had written for inclusion in a journal article which explains how Tertis came to switch from playing the violin to the viola, and his version of how Primrose came to make the switch. The letter ends this way. May I therefore offer the following advice to good violinists. Take up the viola. There are not enough good viola players. They will find themselves, if they do so, in much greater request. There are more than enough good violinists, but not nearly enough good viola players. The memorabilia collection contains many treasures for good reading. Primrose's voluminous press book has a wealth of clippings and articles. Collected by Primrose's sister Jean, the press book makes for interesting reading, with clippings such as this one, dated January 13, 1946, with the headline, Violas are like bad boys and must stand in a corner at times, experts assert. Manuscripts, photos, press clippings, and many other items of interest to researchers can be found in the Primrose Room. The second and largest room in the archive is the PIVA Room. PIVA is, of course, an acronym which stands for Primrose International Viola Archive. The shelves in this room are lined with thousands of viola scores. They are the circulating collection of viola scores, uniformly bound in red and white. Many sonatas, concertos, duos for violin, viola, violoncello, viola bass, and numerous other chamber music combinations representing composers from all over the world in the PIVA Room. Viola music from Australia to Sweden is represented in the collection. A first-time visitor to the PIVA Room, seeing this particular view, can't help but notice the 2 striking paintings. Let's take a closer look at them. Ben Carr Riley, son of violist Maurice Riley, painted Giants of the Viola. It depicts William Primrose surrounded by Vadim Borski, Lionel Tertis, Paul Hindemith, and Maurice Vieux, all violists worthy of emulation. Another painting, Homage to a Great Violist, was commissioned for the opening of the archive and was created by Emmanuel Vardy, a violist turned artist in oils. It was still wet March 1st, 2002 when it hung in the PIVA Room. This room also boasts a bust of Piva promoter and champion David Dalton, sculpted by Daniel Fairbanks and commissioned by Dalton's wife, Donna. The perimeter of the room is lined with photographs taken by Dr. Dwight Pounds, which capture violists' informal or funny moments. But the most important feature of the Piva room are the shelves lined with thousands of viola scores. All of these scores are accessible through BYU's online catalog. When you go to our library's URL, this is what the screen will look like. Choose Find Books from this screen and then use the advanced keyword search option. If you type the words Primrose International Viola Archive and choose the Music and Dance Library from the drop-down menu, as has been done on this screen, your results will be a listing of the items contained in the viola collection. If you wish to eliminate the sound recordings, add Not Sound to your search string, and you will get a listing of nearly 7,000 scores featuring music for the viola. Conversely, if you would like to know about the viola sound recordings, add And Sound to your search string. When you see the size of the collection, you may be surprised, because it's quite extensive. If you are interested in a particular country's viola music held by Piva, you can slightly modify the search. In this example, I have used Australia as an example. I typed in Primrose International Viola Archive and Australia $. The $ is the truncation symbol so that I would get results for both Australia and Australian. Searched in the Music and Dance Library and found 102 scores held by Piva that are from Australia. You can try the same sort of searching any other country or city name to discover holdings from other places in the world. For those of you interested in learning still more about the archive, there is also a website for the Primrose International Viola Archive. Let's take a closer look at the pages of the website. The introduction page will lead to a selection of short essays on topics listed on this slide. The biography page contains a brief biography of William Primrose, including many quotes that are interesting and inspirational to the viola aficionado. The photography collection follows William Primrose from babyhood through the last years of his life. Audio clips in MP3 format, furnished with the cooperation of Biddulph, are available for your listening pleasure. Video clips of Primrose in performance and an interview can be viewed from your home computer. Let's look at one just for a sample. New in the last several years are discographies of works recorded by both William Primrose and Lionel Curtis, with our thanks to discography creators Barlow Bradford and David Herman. There is an essay on violas and violists by Dr. David Dalton. In 2002, we created a database of all items new to the archive that were not referenced in Franz Zeiringer's 1985 publication, Literature for Viola. This listing can help the serious research to find music they may not find anywhere else. Another project has been to create a database of viola music that we have available on microfilm. In 1993, our archivist David Day was granted permission to film manuscripts from the viola collections of Dr. Ulrich Drunner from Stuttgart. A listing of these manuscripts, searchable by composer, is also available on the website. The Primrose International Viola Archive is in the process of acquiring the actual original manuscripts that make up this collection, a project that will greatly enrich archive holdings. The goal of the Primrose International Viola Archive is to truly be the international repository of viola music and violist memorabilia. We do not yet have every piece of music for viola in the archive, but we hope someday to reach that goal. While the archive bears the name of William Primrose, it is not just about him anymore. A man of personal humility, he would not mind sharing the spotlight with others who share his love for the viola. Music and papers from Franz Zeiringer, Walter Lieberman, David Dalton, Maurice Riley, Ernst Walfish, Paul Doctor, Harold Coletta, and Ulrich Drunner now augment the collection and attest that PIVA is truly an international archive. We hope to keep improving the collection and to keep improving access to its holdings through our websites. We hope that you will help us reach our goal by perhaps donating music to the archive or contacting us to recommend viola scores for purchase. At the Primrose competition held in Provo in 2005, Dr. Dwight Pounds posed the question, why do we do this? Why do we have viola competitions and congresses? Why do we maintain a viola archive? The answer he gave was, we do it for you. We do it to leave a legacy for those who love this instrument. We hope to build an archive that will exist for many, many years to come, a place that will honor the viola far into the future. We invite you to visit us either virtually at the website or even better in person, so you can experience the ambience of our wonderful Primrose International Viola Archive.